Hi, Jesse with etrailer. Today we'll be taking a look at and I'll show you how to install the Blue Ox base plate on our 2021 Ford F-150. So there's 5 main components when looking to set up your vehicle for flat tow. Starting with the base plate, that's just going to be your structural mounting point from the towed vehicle, which will connect to the motorhome through the tow bars, which is our second main component. The tow bars are just that link between vehicle and motorhome. Then we have our diode wiring. That's going to make the tail lights on the towed vehicle work by plugging into the 7-way from the motorhome. We have our braking system. That's just to help you come to a nice, safe, controlled stop by using the vehicle's brakes and not just relying on the motorhome's brakes. And then we have our safety cables. Safety cables are here. They're just a last resort in case of a catastrophic disconnect. They'll kind of cradle everything and keep you safe. So this is what your base plate will look like when everything is hooked up. You'll see we have these removable arms here. One thing you will have to look into is what tow bar you have or you're planning on using. You'll see our neighbor today has these brand new Blue Ox tow bar adapters. We had to add those on for them because their last vehicle had a different brand. But really everything's hooked up here. You'll see our safety cable loops. They're super easy to access with a quick link, or if you have a clevis style. And then that's just like any other tow bar arm there. To remove your arm, you most likely remove them if you're driving around with just the truck. They just pop right out. And Blue Ox actually includes these little rubber caps just to keep any dirt and debris out of there, to keep it nice and easy for these to slide in and out. One thing to consider when setting up a base plate with the F-150, especially this Blue Ox kit, it does sit pretty low on the truck. So just depending on your motorhome, you'll most likely need a high-low adapter like we added to our neighbors today. This one here, this is a motorhome that's on the taller side, so we went with a 6-inch. But just another thing to consider when you're ordering everything, just do some measurements and that will kind of help you figure out what kind of adapter you'll need. So just another look at how these arms go in. They're super simple. You just slide them in, rotate them until it will slide in the rest of the way, and then a quarter turn from there and that pin will lock it into place. All in all, I really like this Blue Ox base plate setup. I think it looks really good on the front of the truck. You can't really tell that it's a vehicle that's being towed around, as long as it's not hooked up to everything. As far as the install goes, as far as base plates go, it really wasn't that difficult. The bumper is pretty simple to take off. You'll just need an extra set of hands to help you remove the bumper and unplug some wires. We'll begin our installation under the truck here. There's a skid plate that's kind of blocking our access to the bolts that hold the bumper in that we need to remove. So I have 2 15mm bolts. One on each side. When you're removing this plate or bracket, just make sure you're not pulling on that intercooler too hard. It's just held onto it with a couple pieces of rubber, and those hoses should hang just fine like that. Now we have 3 nuts on each side holding our bumper in that we'll need to remove. There's 2 on this side, 1 on the inside, and then there's a matching set on the passenger side of the truck. Those are 21mm. We'll get those removed. These upper nuts are pretty difficult to get to, so it helps to have a long-handled flex head ratchet like this, especially on this inside one with the intercooler in our way. But you should be able to kind of break those loose and work them out. I'll get all the nuts removed, but on the last one I'll leave a couple threads on because we'll have to pull the bumper back and unhook a few wiring harnesses. It's a good idea to have an extra set of hands. I have my friend Tom here to help me. We're just gonna get this bumper pulled away. There is gonna be some wiring back here holding us. So there's a wiring harness that's wrapping around this beam here. It's going to be hard to see. This connector here, you just push the tab down and pull out. It was hard to show on the camera while we were removing the bumper, but this connector, you just push in here and fold that back and that pops out. And you also had to unplug this wire, which is just a regular push, and that was actually wrapped around the back of that beam. I got that all unplugged and the bumper set aside. Now we need to pop off these tow hooks here. There's just two 15mm bolts holding them in. There's blue Loctite on them, so they'll be pretty hard to get off. Pop that out, then pull our plate out, and then we'll do that process on the other side. Now we're ready to install our base plate bracket. Before we get it up into place, I'll just go over the hardware real quick. So both the front and the back will have a bolt, a lock washer, and a washer with some red Loctite on it. And for the front bolt, we'll just use this nylon lock nut. For the back bolt, we'll use this stick nut. So now I'll get our bracket into place. We're working on the driver's side. We'll want it in this orientation. Then we'll just get it into place. Slide our first bolt through the bottom there. And get that nut started. Then we'll get our back bolt. Let's get that through there. And once we get our stick nut into place, we'll have to rotate our bolt. So it can be kind of tricky. I like to try to get 2 fingers on the bolt so I can spin it. We got those started, and now we can tighten them down. We'll tighten these down. On the front one, you'll need a 19mm wrench and a 19mm socket. We'll just want to make sure that we're pushed up as far as we can be that way. So I'll actually need to loosen this up a bit so I can do that. We want to be as flush as possible against the side here. For the back bolt, we should just be able to use the socket, and this stick will hold everything in place. Now we use our bracket as a template for the 2 holes that we'll need to drill. So to start off, I'll center punch both those, and then I'll come in with a small drill bit and drill a pilot hole. So I'm just taking a punch, find as close to center as I can. And with a smaller drill bit, start a pilot hole, and then we'll step up to a 1/2 inch drill bit. Once we have those holes drilled out all the way, we'll take our hardware, just the lock washer, no flat washer. Slide that into there, and just like the other bolts, we'll put a nylon lock nut on the front one and that stick nut on the back one. And make sure you put Loctite on them. Just need to go through and torque all of our hardware. If you don't have a torque wrench of your own, we do have some available here at eTrailer, or you could always rent one from your local auto parts store. But the specifications listed in the instructions, so I'll go through and torque them all down. Once we have them all torqued down, we can remove our wires here. You can either snip them off and just leave them inside, or if you Bend them back and forth, they'll eventually break off from that small weld that holds them on. Last step is to get our safety cable installed. This is just here as a last resort in case of a catastrophic disconnect. So we'll have to get it wrapped around here. Then there's actually a hole in the back of our base plate for our quick link. And then all we have to do is get our safety cable inside there and tighten it down. While the bumper's still off the truck, it's a good time to get any of your other flat tail components set up, whether it be a braking system or diodes or something along those lines. So that's what we're going to do right now with our neighbor's truck. And then our last step will be to reinstall the bumper. If we have to do any trimming or anything like that, I'll come back and show you what we did. But otherwise, it should just be a matter of reinstalling the bumper, just the reverse of how we took it off. We got our fascia back on. It bolted on pretty easily. We didn't have to do any additional trimming. So that's going to do it for our look at and installation of the Blue Ox base plate kit on our 2021 Ford F-150.